Hi there Agile Loaders, welcome to Cloud-Based Testing with Agile Load. You're going to need a pre-configured Amazon EC2 account. Don't worry if you don't have that, we're going to have a whole video about setting up Amazon EC2. And of course an application to test, that's the whole point of using Agile Load, of course, is to test your applications for performance. So the first question is, why would you use cloud for load testing? Well, it brings a lot of benefits. They are that it's on demand. You can switch your injectors on and off as and when you need them. It's very scalable because not only can you switch those injectors on and off, you can switch off and on as many injectors as you need. It's also geographically diverse, so you can switch those injectors on and off around the world using Amazon's redundant data centers. And that means it's actually very low cost. The cost of running these machines is calculated in cents per hour. If you take a look at the Amazon pricing, you'll see it's really affordable. It's the sort of thing that you can just use with a credit card. And also the data transfer costs are very low. In fact, it's particularly well set up for load testing because the data is charged out but not in, and so it's typically set up for a web server model, whereas in load testing we're taking the reverse of that model and we get a lot of data coming in, which Amazon right now are not charging for and have not done so in the past. So let's take a look at a scenario. We've got our application, in this case it's deployed in North America, and normally when we do load testing we would test from the data center, and of course you can use Agile Load to do that. However, our users are not based in the data center, and while the traffic ultimately reaches that last mile of the data center, if you want to understand user experience from different locations around the world, for example Europe, Asia or South America and so on, then we need to test from those locations, and we can use the cloud to do that. And we're using Amazon EC2, which has locations around the world, particularly in the US, Asia, South America and Europe. So by having Agile Load inside of those locations, we can then use those locations as injectors and thereby evaluate user experience from around the world. So now for some of the science, let's take a look inside one of these clouds. In fact, these clouds are really data centers which are full of thousands of machines which use virtualization. And you can then spin up and spin down these virtual machines, which can be pre-configured with Agile Load so that they can be ready to run as injectors. So if we drill down further into just one of these machines, let's take a look at what we need to make this run. Well, if we've launched an Agile Load instance, then there are two things that we need to do. We need to make sure that the firewall is configured. So if you've already pre-configured Amazon EC2, then you won't need to do this. This will already be set up as this screen's showing here. If not, then it's in the video about pre-configuring Amazon EC2 for load testing. The other thing we're going to need to do is tell the Agile Load instance about the external IP address. And there's a short clip following this which will explain how to do that. So once our injector instance is ready, we're then ready to connect it up to our Agile Load console, which is sitting perhaps on your desk or in your company, which also needs to be configured. You need to know the external IP address and the internal IP address, and the firewall on the company side needs to be configured to allow Agile Load's port pass-through, which is 15140. This can of course be configured. So now you can see how the console connects via the internet to the remote injector in the cloud. So let's now look at how to configure each part of Agile Load. We have the console over here and the injector over here. We need to configure the console with the IP address, and if, like me, you're using a changing dynamic IP address, then you'll need to find out what that is. And there's an easy way to do that with Google by typing in what is my IP, and Google will come back with your IP address. There it is. So I'm going to go into the Agile Load daemon, which is the green gazelle, right click and choose configure. Bring this screen down so you can see it, and in the NAT box, which I can enable by clicking custom, I'm going to type in that exact IP address. So the box above is the internal address, the box below is the external address. So long as my firewall is configured to allow 15140 and port forwarding is switched on, then my console is configured. I want to launch an injector in Northern California, so I choose Northern California in EC2 and click Launch Instance, just using the classic wizard, and clicking Continue. I want to go to Community AMIs and I want to find the Agile Load Amazon image. So typing that in, I find it, I choose it by clicking Select. I'm going to use a small machine type, it's the cheapest to run, and click on Continue. If I wanted to run a larger test, I might want to choose a larger machine type. I'm going to give it a name now, so I'll just call this Injector West. Click on Continue. And my existing key pairs, this is a certificate file which we cover in the Amazon EC2 video, also on the channel. And also we choose the firewall and setting that up I'll show you in the Amazon EC2 video as well. So click on continue and launch. So let's just close this screen and we can see it's pending. Let's fast forward and now we can see it's running. So this is great. I'm now going to associate an IP address. I've already set one up, so I associate it with my image and associate. I could create a new one. Again, I'll cover this in the EC2 video. And now I'm ready to go. If I go to instances, I can click on connect, download a shortcut file, click on that and it launches a remote desktop. I type in the password, which is Agile load 888 with a capital A and capital L. Click on OK. And now we're going to connect remotely to this machine in Northern California with Agile load already installed. There it is, the green gazelle. I just need to configure this with the internal and external IP addresses. So I have my internal address, clicking on custom. I then need to put in the external address, which is in the connection bar at the top. And this is the same IP address that you configured inside the EC2 dashboard. Clicking OK, we can see the gazelle goes back to green again and it's started, and we now have a setup Agile load injector and console. They can now talk to each other. Going back now to the Agile load console, I'm going to open up a job I already created, which is cloud test, and it's already pre-configured with the monitoring information that I want to check. So I'm checking my injector's health and the health of the server that's my target of my load. I'm dragging and dropping the script that I want, and I'm going to give these guys a name, EU customers, because they're going to be based in Europe. So I'm generating this load from Europe, hence I need to use my European injector. You can see it says 79.125.110.12. I've already got that configured in my monitoring section, and I set that up in very much in the same way that we set that Northern Californian one up. I'm telling it to run manually until I stop, and the script is just going to run one iteration per scenario iteration, and I want to put in 1,000 virtual users and ramp them up over 10 minutes. I'm going to set my HTTP options. I'm not going to use any special browser here. I'm just going to go down. I'm going to make this a little bit light for this server, so I'm going to ignore static requests and then go across to network options. I'm not going to set anything there, and I'm not going to set any service level agreement options here. I'm going to click on launch. It's asking me to save the project, so I'm going to do so, and it then launches the job, checking the injectors and configurations and so on. And we've got the global HTTP view, so we start to see the red line at the top is how many virtual users we have running right now. So we have just over 20. I'm going to look at the health of my server, so I'm going to go into the Windows tab and double click overview, and we can see CPU time is blue at the top. That's idle, so it's nearly 90% idle. So I need to put in some more users here. I'm going to duplicate my European users, and I'll call these Californian users, and I'm going to have them generated from the injector I created in Northern California just now in the video you saw earlier on. So that's the IP address of that machine. It's the same IP address we were using earlier on in the video. And I'm going to click on start. So there it will start to run. And going across to my folder view again, I'm going to go into page timers. What I want to do is compare European with Californian response time. So I'm going to the Plants by WebSphere homepage and checking both of those for, I don't know if you saw that, EU user and West Injector West. And we can see here the blue line is the European response time and the red line is Californian response time. So I'm going to add on the number of users there. So you can see we're on the left hand side, we've got response time in milliseconds. On the right hand side we've got the number of users. Now I'm opening up and going to drag across the Windows collector for my server. So we're going to look at the processor for the server, see how that's doing. Now it's on the left hand side, which is the scale's wrong, so I'm going to move that across to the right hand side scale, so it's going to share a scale with the virtual users and make the line a bit thicker there. So it's the yellow line. You can see it's about 20% utilized, and we've got about 400 users on. And whoa, all of a sudden it's 100% utilized, and page response time has gone through the roof whilst we've hit nearly 500 users. So that seems to be our limit. So thanks very much for listening. If you want to see more about setting up jobs and test execution, check out some of the other videos. with those titles, and hopefully see you on the website. Thank you very much. Bye bye.